Joe Cornish made Attack the Block, which gave the world, I think, the first from John Boyega, whose career has been absolutely stellar.
I've held the door open for him many
times. And it is true that sometime later, and my problem with Attack the Block at the time was more to do with the way Attack the Block was sold. But sometime later, I went back and I watched that film again. And I do think, and I've said this to Joe since I saw him actually not so long ago, I said, you know what? I called it wrong and I apologise. The Kid Who Would Be King is a film which has had a bit of a difficult run in America. There was an article in The Guardian recently that started off by quoting Variety as saying that Kid Who Would Be King is one of the year's first big budget flops, and that they were estimating, it was going to lose a whole bunch of money and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And Joe Cornish seemed very sort of, unbowed by all of this because he'd made the film that he wanted to make. So The Kid Who Would Be King is the story of a young and sort of slightly bullied kid played by Louis Ashbourne-Serkis, who's a schoolboy Alex, who, along with his equally outcast best mate, whilst being chased by some bullies, stumbles across what appears to be an Arthurian sword in the stone. They take it home, start looking at it, and think, wow, this might actually be something.
Maybe it's a prank, a YouTube thing, a social experiment. Maybe there were hidden cameras. Look. There's something written on the guard. Put it into Google Translate. Gladius Arturi Filius Tintagelli.
It's Latin. It means Sword of Arthur, son of Tintagel. Who's Tintagel?
It's a place. An island off the coast of Cornwall. Some people say it's where King Arthur was born.
Alex, what if you're the only person who could have pulled that sword out? What if it's the sword in the stone?
That sound of them laughing, it always reminds me of that thing, which is one of my favourite things in the Narnia Chronicles, is we're not heroes, we're from Finchley. And so they realise that they have stumbled upon something epic, and there is an enchantress who is going to come back and do terrible things, and in order to stop that happening, they have to go on a quest, which will take them to Cornwall and on towards Tintagel. And in order to do this, they will have to team up with a sort of band of modern-day knights, which will involve them making friends and allies of the very people who have bullied them in the past. And then they go on this adventure. Now, the interesting thing about the film is this. As I said, we had this news story about has opened soft in America, and newspapers are very sort of keen to jump on that idea that, film isn't going to make a huge amount of money, it may lose money, blah, 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 blah. Every now and then a film comes along that I think, this film has been made with all the right ways, and actually I don't care whether or not it loses money. And then a perfect example would be Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which Edgar Wright made, and I think it cost. The comparison was with Howard the Duck, that they had spent the kind of money that Howard the Duck had spent, and they had lost the kind of money that Howard the Duck had lost. But I didn't care because I loved the film. And actually nowadays, Edgar Wright will tell you that everybody who goes to who gets there and says that Scott Pilgrim is like one of his favourite films. In the case of this, what it is essentially is, firstly, it's a kids' movie. It's aimed at a younger audience, and it's done so. It does that proudly, and it comes on like a kind of cross between, on the one hand, that sort of innocence of a Children's Film Foundation film, which is from a time from before you were born.
Okay.
Children's Film Foundation would make these kind of peculiarly British kids movies. And on the other hand, the sort of the special effects that you would expect from something like Harry Potter. And I think possibly that's one of the reasons why it may have confused American audiences, because they're expecting Harry Potter, and actually what they're getting is something that's closer to Children's Film Foundation.
Right.
But I don't say that as a criticism. Because the thing I like about this film, and the thing actually that going back and looking at Attack the Block that I think I misjudged before, was Joe Cornish has this absolute faith in, at least it appears to me, this absolute faith in the younger generation. And in Attack the Block, he gets together this kind of ragtag group of people who aren't heroic at all at the beginning, and then who sort of tie together and become heroes. And there is a very similar narrative at work in The Kid Who Would Be King, is that it's a story of these bullied kids who have to team up with the bullies and have to take control of their own future and go on a quest in which what they have to do is to learn to live by the chivalric code. And the chivalric code of being honest and being honourable and not lying and not doing... And whilst they're doing this, they're being pursued by, you know, a certain amount of special effects and, you know, creatures and all that sort of stuff, because the film doesn't want for spectacle. I mean, it's painted on a very broad canvas, which I think is probably the thing that has led people to think it's in the Harry Potter realm. But in fact, it seems to me to be a film which, again, particularly when they started making it, because I know Joe Cornish had this idea for this film for a very, very long time. We weren't in the middle of all the turmoil that's currently engulfing the country.
Right.
But it seemed to me that this was a film that was saying, look, firstly, the future is in the hands of the younger generation. Secondly, the future is in the hands of the younger generation agreeing to put aside their differences and work together for a common purpose from which all of them will benefit. And it does that in this very big-hearted way, but also in a way which is not embarrassed about being big-hearted. It's not embarrassed about not being cynical. What it is it's that story. It is a story of a group of misfits and a group of outsiders doing the thing that King Arthur did, referring back to that story. And so on the one hand, you have the spectacle of a fantasy picture, and you have character of Merlin, who's played as a sort of young, crazy character, which is actually an incarnation of the older Merlin. And you have all the, you know, kind of exciting battle scenes that take place with, you know, schools and school kids and that sort of stuff. But at the heart of it, it's kind of got a similar appeal as stories like Stig of the Dump. A story about, you know, ordinary kids finding something miraculous and then somehow it bonding them. And I watched it with a really big smile on my face, and I thought it was genuinely charming and big-hearted. And I genuinely don't mind whether or not it does. I mean, I suspect that it will do better here.
Yeah.
Exactly, because I think we'll get it here in a way that perhaps the American audience didn't.
Well, let's hope
and I thought it was really oddly charming. And I said the thing I liked most about it was that it wasn't embarrassed about what it was. It is what it is. I mean, I think it may well struggle to justify the expense of it, but you know, who goes to see movies because of the money? You go because you think it's a good story with characters that you like, and it's kind of told with, and you know, it sees a movie a long way down a track if you think the movie's heart is in the right place.
100%.
And I genuinely thought this was.